From the tech room of Microsoft Resources, this is James Wong, Internal Director of IT at Microsoft Resources. Today I'll be presenting deployment creation with Autodesk software as well as methods on how to best deploy the software in your firm. So before we begin, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss today. We're going to first start with the prerequisites for deployment creation. We're going to talk about deployment image creation and the points you should remember. After talking about that, we'll run through a live demo. We'll create a deployment image on a file server that's actually a DFS on my domain, on my sandbox. After that, we'll talk about deployment image push. There are several methods for pushing software, including SneakerNet, using GPO, or SCCM. We'll demonstrate using GPO. And since there's so much chatter on the AEC bytes and other forums out there, so I want to talk a little bit about BIM on WAN. So let's get started. So here are some prerequisites we need to consider before actually creating the deployment. These are pretty typical. Make sure you read the documentation and all of these points. Particularly, you need to know the licensed server model that you'll be using, because it will be prompted for that when we create the deployment image. So a little bit about deployment image creation before we get into the demo. Do not create a deployment image with K mappings or M mappings or any kind of drive mappings. Always use UNC paths, as this ensures that any mappings on your workstations are ignored and they go directly to the server. And if you have DFS, distributed file system, on your network, that's actually a recommended method. That way that your servers are not being called explicitly. They're referred to in a logical namespace, and I'll demonstrate that in a demo. As well as making sure if you have multi-site deployment images, little smiley face there is that you cannot copy a deployment image from server 1 to server 2. You actually have to recreate it. So if you have DFS, it's actually a big plus, because you can actually distribute multiple targets across your sites. If you are using Windows Server 2008 R2, it comes with branch cache in a distributed mode or a hosted mode. That actually mirrors from server 1 to server 2, and you can actually have a built-in mirroring. And some of you are using delta level mirroring, byte level mirroring. That's actually supported and tested as well. That will help you with your multiple geographic locations. So a quick note about service packs, appending and merging. Appending happens after the installation of your software. So software gets installed and then your service packs. With merging, you can't actually unmerge a service pack, so you get stuck with it. So I actually prefer to append a service pack. Alrighty. So I'm actually showing you my VMware workstation pane right now. I actually have a couple of workstations pre-built, and I have two machines here, DC1 and DC2. They're both Windows Server 2008 R2, and a Windows 7 Professional machine built as well. So DC1 was actually the one I just installed the LM tools in a demo. I'm going to browse into the folder path. I created a folder called Data, and inside Data I have another folder called Deploy Images, and this is similar to your application deploy points and your software installation points. So today I'm just going to demonstrate Navisworks Manage 2011 in the 64-bit deployment. If we have time, we're actually going to try to do a Revit Architecture 2011 64-bit deployment image as well, and maybe even a 32-bit. We'll see how much time we have. There's one reason why I have a 64-bit tag in there, and I don't just call it Revit Architecture 2011, because 64-bit and 32-bit software deployment images cannot stay in the same folder. You actually have to have it on different folders, so you have to keep it separate. So keep that in mind if you have multiple sites, or you have multiple workstations varieties. So I'm going to browse in right now to the UNC path of the server. So DC1 is the server name, and you can see all three folders being created. And right now I'm going to DC2, and these all join into its own domain. And in DC2 I'm going to go into Server Manager, click that, and in Server Manager, check this out on the left hand side. I'm going to expand roles. I already have the file services installed, DFS management tools. I'm going to go to namespace. I created a deployments namespace. And so right now what I'm going to do is create a new folder in a namespace. I'm going to call it Navisworks Manage 2011, and I'm going to put 64-bit there as well. And I'm going to add a target, and the target before was DC1, so I'm going to change the server name to DC1. Click that, and you can check that there. I'm going to click on Navisworks Managed 2011 64-bit. Click OK. Click OK. Keep in mind that this is a logical namespace, and it points actually to the DC1 folder structure. So in essence, if you have a file server somewhere else in California or in Philadelphia, you actually can point to their target as well. Click OK. Alright, so if you click on the names folder, you can actually see if it's a referral status and actually the path as well. So we can see that those are good to go. I'm going to minimize that. So what I'm going to do is create the deployment image on the Windows 7 machine. So it's actually on Windows 7, go to the DFS namespace, and then to write to the DC1, which contains the folder. So go into Windows 7, I'm going to browse into the Windows Explorer, and I actually downloaded the software from the Autodesk website, from the subscription center. It's Autodesk, Navisworks Managed 2011. I'm going to scroll down to Setup. Let that run. I'm going to click on Yes. Setup installs. And I'm just going to click on Create Deployments. Little hiccup there. And I'm just going to browse in with Windows Explorer just to make sure I have the right syntax. So I'm going to go, although I can go into DC1 and use DC1 as the admin location, this is method 1. Since I have DFS already configured, I prefer to use DFS. So what I'm going to do is going to Team MRC, which Team Microsoft Resources, click on the path, and I'm going to take the UNC path of the area, click that, I'm going to paste it over here, and for the name I'm just going to call it Navisworks Manage 2011 64-bit network. So if you check the look at the checkbox or the radio box on the bottom, a 64-bit machine can actually create a 64 or 32, but a 32 cannot create a 64-bit deployment, right? So click next, and it's going to give me some options here, the EULA and user license agreement. I'm going to click accept. Fill this information out here. I have a webinar serial number that I use. I type that up over here. The product key and serial number, as I said before, is actually located in the subscription center. Type in your organization name. I'm just going to click next. Click next. And click configure to make sure that you have managed to specify it as a network license. So I'm going to choose single license server. DC1, I just installed FlexLM. Click next, and we are actually finished. And create deployment. So it's going to run, do its process. You can see that this deployment image is actually wrapping up. And it is finished. So we just finished deployment image creation. Let's talk a little bit about deployment image push. There's various technologies out there. I prefer the built-in deployment image push methods. I use group policy myself in Microsoft Resources. I know some of you in the participant list use SCCM. That's recommended as well. And if you're not using group policy or SCCM and you're doing sneaker netting, shoot me an email and we'll talk, and hopefully we'll get you into the most effective way to deploy your software. Just keep a quick note. Push deployments are only calling Autodesk software MSI files. They're not the prerequisites. So if you have any prerequisites like the Visual C++ installers and distributables, you have to actually call those before the GPO finishes. A quick option is actually to make a bat file that calls those, or you actually can manually install one piece of software that will through the shortcut, and that will install those MSIs separately as well. All right. So here's for another demo. This is deployment image push. So as you see here, there's a new machine here called Windows 7 number 2. And I'm just going to go into DC1 right now and make sure that the Navisworks deployment image is fully finished. I saw it's finished, but just want to make sure. As you can see, all the files are here. That's a good sign. Close out of that guy. I'm actually going to go into Active Directory users and computers to make sure my objects and my OUs are properly set up. I'm going to make sure that Windows 7 02 is in a Brazil OU. And it is. Very good. And let's just close out of that guy. We don't need to use this anymore. And let's go into Group Policy Management. Huh. A little weird. Let's go into Group Policy Management again. Alright. And let's go into Brazil. Let's make a new Group Policy object. Call it Navisworks Manage 2011 64-bit. Click OK. Right click on that guy, click on Edit, and you'll get your Group Policy Management editor. So just click on Policies, click on Software Settings. And before we do this, we're going to actually use Windows Explorer to browse to make sure we have the right syntax. Click on that guy, copy this. And I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to choose Advanced in this package. I'm going to click Apply. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to right-click Software Installation and click New Package. And I'm going to browse into Admin Image, x64 for 64-bit, NavMan for since I'm doing Navisworks Manage, and I'm going to hit up Roamer.msi. So give it a minute or so while it reads the MSI package. Alrighty. And you're going to see that it's Autodesk Network Manage 2011, and it is a 64-bit platform. Perfect. Let's go into the Modifications tab and put the transform files that we need. Click on Add, and Admin Image, x64 again, NavMan again. Alright, click OK. And there's one more transform file, guys, that you have to make sure you put if you want your group policy objects to deploy properly. It's actually in Tools, gpo.mst. If this file is not here, it will not push. Sadly, this problem happens to a lot of our clients. Just keep that in mind. So this is all good. Let me close out of that guy, close out of that guy. And what I'm going to do right now is go into Windows 7, number 2. I'm going to use a command line, and I want the Windows 7 2 machine to actually force the group policy object I just created. So I'm just going to go gp update /force. So there's two types of policies. There's a computer policy as well as a user configuration policy, and they're going to update both of them according to the domain. Let's check that. User policy update has completed successfully. Very good. And computer policy is done successfully. Alright, very good. So we exit that guy. And just for safe measures, we actually perform a reboot. A reboot ensures that all the needed software gets installed properly. So I hope everybody enjoyed the quick little video. I know there are a lot of topics that we covered today, but they're all vital for successful implementation. Gladly, there are a lot of documentation available, so please be sure to check those out as well. Any questions or comments? Feel free to shoot me an email. I also have a blog, thejame@wordpress.com. There's also a YouTube channel. Please check out our upcoming events at the microsoftresources.com website. All right, talk to you soon.